Hello, beautiful people. I'm back again. This is Sudhamai, your communication coach, with my pep talk. Yes, be spoken and be heard's pep talk. And today we have an eminent personality from the field of education who started his career as a school teacher and further rose to great heights on as a resource person for leading publishing houses in India. One such are Oxford University Press, S. Chand, Frank Edu, and Black and Orient Black Swan Private Limited. Well, he has obtained his doctorate in mathematics and qualifications in physics, English, and education. He has been a mentor and teacher trainer for many reputed schools and colleges, and he's been giving wonderful initiatives, workshops in content enrichment and technology integration in classrooms through his initiatives. There's much more to know, and with me, I have my guest, Dr. Adhuri Ramakrishnan sir. Dr. Sir, welcome to Pep Talk.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
Sir, first of all, from a school teacher, then you have rose to different positions, being a resourceful person, and then you're a teacher trainer for many reputed educational institutions. How did this journey start?
I started at Little Flower High School, Abbots. It's a very reputed school. All the time, of course, anytime it's a very reputed school, and people used to wait for 15 hours to get an application form. That was the stage of the school.
Right.
And gradually I improved my qualifications. I came to junior college, degree college, and I was teaching for competitive examinations, physics also.
Okay.
And I did some projects for NCRT and developing a professional kit for mathematics teachers. So I found some interest in education. Therefore, I started working even for the publishers, like editing books, reviewing books, and promoting the book, of course, in schools, conducting workshops for teachers and whatnot. So all these are allied fields. They're not different from each other. Actually.
Right, absolutely. They're correlated.
They're correlated.
Right. So how was the journey, sir? How did you enjoy?
It's a long journey. I enjoy. But see, though I have done several roles, of course, the field of education, at the end of the day, I love only teaching and teaching school kids. And I haven't left my chalk piece, of course. See, though I have gone a tech-savvy person and talking about simulations, applets, and all that.
Right.
But ultimately, of course, chalk piece is still in my hands, actually.
Okay. A teacher is always a teacher.
Yeah, it has to be.
Right. So you are also done some quite a remarkable learning for your self-learning also from Cambridge University. So what was that about? Why does it also need certain trainings like that?
No, it's actually a professional level diploma in teaching and training.
Okay.
So see, usually when you talk about the Cambridge assessments, they're very keen about the learning aspect.
Right.
And you need not write so many words and superfluous and all that, but see, whatever you write, you should be able to justify it actually. Right. So it is actually like a program in education, and you learn to be a teacher, you learn to be a trainer, and you write assessment, assignments actually.
Right.
You have to do some work, and I did my practical work at Swaminarayan Gurukul International School, Bangalore.
Okay.
And eventually, of course, my project was on multiple intelligence of Dr. Howard Gardner's. And I got my diploma from Cambridge University, and CFBT has helped me, Center for British Teachers. That was the authorized center. And I got my Cambridge diploma from there.
Right. Beautiful. So the journey you just mentioned have just started through Pep Talk. And I wanted to know more about your English language learning laboratory. So big title. What is it exactly?
See, I learned English. It was very difficult those days without Google and Wikipedia. Okay. So after understanding that technology can help learning English, I did some work. I don't say extensive, but I did some work in learning English or teaching English rather using technology.
Right.
See, I have seen many teachers, of course, like who have been using the conventional methods,
Right.
and they're still using the same methods and all that. These days, perhaps you have much better facilities rather to teach English. You have listening games, mixer groups, interviews.
Right.
Okay, you have worksheets, of course, interactive worksheets, and stories with music, and you can chart softwares. And there are many things which are available today, and you can even chat with somebody if you don't have anyone to, in front of you. You can chat with somebody, and you can check your grammar these days. There is no need for you to ask someone, and you can improve your vocabulary, and periodically you can test your vocabulary. How good is it, of course? So consciously you can improve your vocabulary, check your grammar, and listen to so many people, maybe in TED Talks and all that. So all these things ultimately culminate into a method of learning English language using technology. Perhaps, you don't need any kind of external help. Even in fact, your internet access can help you a lot. There are different resources, because if you can lay your hands on a particular thing, of course, you can improve your English using that particular resource, not necessarily to use a combination of many resources and all that. And therefore, I strongly advise to like all the English teachers, many times I've done this one. I just tell them that use technology. You don't need any other person to guide you and all that. And probably the person you have chosen may not be competent enough to guide you. But internet will not falter you. Like particularly, like say for example, there is an English teacher, and when there is an English teacher, she speaks English in the class. She reads the text there of any main course book or whatever it is, and she may not be competent to read. There can be some errors, but instead, these days you have text readers. Okay, you feed the text to it, and it reads it for you. And therefore, it is all the time advantageous to depend on technology for honing the skills, in a particular language. So I strongly recommend that, and that is how actually, many English teachers, they started improving. It is not only reading and writing or whatever it is. You see, all resources you have for anything you want, starting from it reads for you, and it can check your grammar, and it improves your vocabulary. It can conduct a test to you and tell you, of course, this is your vocabulary. And I just give you a small example. You see, if you can pick up, see, there is a software which gives you 5 new words to you every day, regular basis. In a school year, which has got about 200 days, you have improved your vocabulary by 1,000 more words. See, so easy it is, of course, and you need everything is readily available.
Yes, you're speaking about the content that is readily available in internet space, and with e-learning books, apps, websites, videos, and wonderful people like yours. Motivational sessions. We have everything spread ahead of us. But my question here is, how can one become fluent even using these things? There is still some gaps. I noticed as a communication coach, I've noticed this, that still using these things, we definitely need a mentor. We definitely need someone to speak. So will technology take place?
No, role of a mentor, certainly I can't rule out that possibility. But probably, while talking about the skills, see, I just tell you something very interesting. Most of the English schools, what is not done by any teacher, I don't recommend them, is explaining. Okay, I don't expect any teacher to explain. If you explain, you are disconnecting the writer and the reader here. A teacher who is interfering in between and starts interpreting on her own or his own. And probably, we don't do justice for the writer. We don't get the first-hand experience from the writer. And therefore, what has to be done is building the skills. The teacher's role is limited to building the skills. Okay, if the students are comfortable in reading, that reading comprehension, listening comprehension, writing, and and speaking, of course. Now, what is done, of course, in the Indian context is people start speaking. They want to speak a lot, but they never understand that listening is more important. See, language is after all imitation. So you listen to people and you imitate.
Right.
If that were true, what is more important is listening. And see, generally what happens, we listen from wrong people. The pronunciation is wrong, the sentence structure is wrong, and we listen to, of course, time and again we hear only that wrong English. And therefore, many times, of course, I advised even the English teachers, you play some audio files in the class from an appropriate person.
Right.
You have podcasts, you have several audio files, you have text readers. And when you feel that you are not competent, you become a co-learner. Along with the students, you listen to that. Right. And once they understand, they remember the phrases, they remember sometimes small, short sentences, and they remember, of course, certain words they can retrieve, and they can use them in daily usage. And what is essential is lot of listening. And when we don't attach significance to that, when we think that, okay, speaking is important, everywhere, in every street corner, you find a spoken English class. Okay. So, see, I always tell them, of course, go to listening English classes. If somebody can play an audio file for you and administer a short test, and he's the right person, of course, because when you listen a lot and understand, and probably you can remember those words, you can use them when you need. And therefore, we are going, perhaps, I don't know if I'm right to make a comment of this kind, our approach is not right. Our approach of learning English is not right. But however, in some of the schools where I go, international schools, even the kids, of course, in kindergarten classes, they're very, very comfortable, and there's absolutely no problem for them, but they learn intuitively. Okay, they don't have any kind of syntax and all that. They learn much later. And everything they learn, of course, in a natural course. And that I prefer, that kind of environment. Okay. And as it comes to adults, people like you are required, the communication coach and all that, because these people have got inhibitions, of course. They have got their own apprehensions, like fear of rejection, because I may lose my impression if I talk wrong English. Right. So naturally, they don't start, and that's a problem actually. Right. And
people are judgmental.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Like that. And that's a hindrance for proper communication. Judgmental listening.
That labeling is there actually. Like.
So what you would suggest is listening is the key for fluency. Right. Now, how about there's an act? Does the No Child Left Behind Act really promote inclusive education? What's your opinion?
And see, this is dropout rate is very much, of course, prevalent in India. Everybody knows that, of course. People see, if you have, say, 10 students who have enrolled in grade 1, by the time they come to grade 10, of course, it's only 3 or 4. It's between 3 and 4. And what is happening here is that, okay, there is no detention system. Right. And we are thinking of only minimum learning levels we are expecting from the students. But despite all these endeavors we are making, but still there are dropouts, and particularly like people who tend to work. Children are put to work actually. They are working in fields, they are working in factories, they are working in restaurants and all that. Right. So people are not very keen about education. That's the reason, of course, inclusive education is taking the back burner. I also tell you one more significant reason here. Right. Like our education system is, like alienated completely from employment. So there is no guarantee that even after getting a graduation or a master's program from university, you are not assured of a job. Okay, you don't get even work, of course, unless you have your own skills personally, you build them on it. And therefore, people are very skeptical about getting a job after education. And therefore, education is not at all important for them. It's only ornamental. Okay, it's just for decoration. And
Right.
for that reason, what happened? People are not very keen about it. However, when we talk about the national education policy, now we are envisaging that. We are telling them we have vocational education. We teach you something, to earn a livelihood. Okay,
Right.
you can comfortably make something along with the education. Of course, the schools are imparting. You're also getting some vocational education, give you some training in some skills, so that the moment you step out of the institution, you are ready to make some money. You can earn your livelihood and you can have a decent living.
Right.
Not that, and even we are introducing graduation also, of course, in a vocational education.
Okay.
All the inclusive education. When you say it's a in the broader perspective, we also talk about, say, children with differently abled children, okay,
Right.
children of special needs.
Right.
And the children probably, of course, they're gifted. We have to nurture them, and we don't have such provisions in India, because see, we have only one size fits all.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I have in my classroom a heterogeneous group, and I try to do justice as much as possible, but there are some left behind. Certainly, I can't assure, but to some extent, when in international schools, we have something called differentiation strategy. Okay, we address the individual needs. Okay, we cater to the requirements there. So teachers know about the child very well. Okay, his learning style or intelligence, and he's endowed with, or his likes and dislikes, and how does he learn actually, like what does he, what form. So so what happens there is, we can customize our lessons. When it comes to an international school, the importance, of course, we have there is, we can customize the way we teach, of course, the delivery mechanism. We can write our lesson plans, and everything is customized, and therefore we can probably address, though the group is heterogeneous. But in 95% of the Indian classrooms are, like a teacher who is, the supreme commander in the class, and he's the only one who talks, and all the students, they remain silent. They're all passive spectators in the class. And at the end of the class, he dictates some notes or writes the notes on the board, and everybody writes the same answer.
Okay, right.
And we got used to that system. And unfortunate condition is that most of the teachers, they teach as they learned, as they learned when they were in schools. So ultimately, what happens is that the methods you're employing are probably 20-year-old methods. Right. And you never think that you're a 21st teacher, and you never want to, improve your teaching methodology and all that. You are teaching as you learned that day under the tree, and under the tree in a hut and all that, like thatched roof. And you still, that is the same environment. Of course, you don't want to come out of that. That's a problem with many teachers.
Right. So that's an extensive and elaborative expression for that question. And one thing I've noticed, that for 21st century to sustain, for anyone, not just a teacher or a student, one has to upgrade. One has to upgrade so that things become easier and things will move ahead quicker. Now, how about, you were talking about national education policy, which is most debatable after pandemic and corona and all these discussions. We have most hot topic on National Education Policy 2020, which somewhere, according to my knowledge as a layman, I understood that it emphasizes more on fine arts and humanitarian studies. So please correct me, sir. So my question here is, you know what's parents' attitude, in Indian parent attitude. They are very adamant. They have thinking that anything but it should be science or commerce that give them, their children, a lucrative career. So inculcating, bringing humanitarian studies and fine arts, singing, dancing, how can we take this wonderful policy ahead into the parents' mind?
We have brought this condition actually, I tell you the real situation. Like, we have IIT Foundation in grade 1. Isn't it ridiculous actually? Like, parents, they want it actually. Right. See, when parents, they do not know what is going to happen after 12 long years, whether these IITs would exist in the same form or not, but they want to play a safe game. I see, because somebody got, and like if you go to IIT and you get a job, and it can be lucrative, and you can have, see, all these things are hypothetical considerations. I strongly deny with them. And many people, of course, at the end of the day, they are getting bored with this education system, and they land up somewhere doing some, like even engineering today, we have 90% are not employable in a horrible condition actually.
Right.
And still parents, they don't want to change. Now, see, national education policy very strongly suggests that, it should be connected to employment. And see, it happens only when you learn the work. It is not how many books you have read and all that. The bookish knowledge, it doesn't help you when there is no practical application of that. And therefore, the moment you complete learning, there must be a project attached to that. Project is an application of learning. So only when you learn certain things, of course, converted that into work, when there is an industry interface. Why IITs are successful? Because children, they go to industries, they work there directly, they get first-hand experience, and that's a simple reason. And when you can't provide the same environment, say ordinary engineering colleges, there is absolutely no reason for your children to get a job, because there are no real-time projects, and you write records and all imaginations, and sometimes you buy projects. Unfortunate condition. Most of the engineering students, I can tell you, they just say buy projects, either it's a major project or a minor project. And therefore, parents realize at that time when the child is not getting the job. Until then, they don't realize.
True.
Okay, see, so 20 years or 21 years, he's getting a degree, and that is with a distinction, 85%, 90%, but there is no job, no campus placement, no even off-campus placement also, and he's already 3 years over, 4 years over, and then he somehow settles in a job which is no way connected with his core engineering, what he did. And then the parents realize there's something wrong.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't start even in the college. Remember that, even in schools. See, if a teacher is giving a project, parents think that it's a waste of time. They think, no, you study, you learn some answers and write 10 times the answers, but don't do a project. See, this is the gross ignorance of the parents, ultimately putting the child in a very bequaint situation. You see, in a very troublesome situation. See, therefore, from the school level, I just give you a small example. Let us say there is a math teacher who talks about area of a rectangle, length times breadth, and the children, they are doing 10 problems. But you give the child a table talk, let him measure the length and width of that and find out the area. Why haven't you done that? See, why doing 10 problems? Give him a small project, let him determine the length and breadth of a rectangle and find out the area. So if such simple projects are not assigned, the condition continues to be like this. I just give you an example of, say, an English teacher. So you teach prepositions in the class. Okay, you give a long lecture, examples and everything, but you ask the child to take a newspaper and identify the prepositions from that. 10 prepositions, make a list and bring it to me tomorrow. So the child feels that there is a wall, a thick wall between the school and the community. Exactly. You are no way connected with that. Okay, only after you complete education, you will embark, you start your life outside the school premises. This is the ridiculous idea. And I tell you, in international schools, community service has got weightage. Right. And all the students should necessarily think that they're a part of the society. You can't tell them that, see, I come only into the society after my education is over. No. See, you are taking education, you are living now. And education is not for life, of course, living at present. And therefore, they make community service an integral part of education. Right. And that's what is appreciated actually. Go out once, leave your four walls and see what is happening. Tomorrow you may become an IAS officer, an administration. You have to design the policies. If you don't know what the condition of the rural environment is all about, what can you do as an officer? Absolutely. You fail miserably. Therefore, national education policy strongly thinks, it gives the freedom. It tells you, I give you 50 subjects. You can choose them. If you want to leave chemistry, leave chemistry. You can still have physics. If you want to take, if you want to have a combination of economics with physics, go ahead. So such, like liberal arts, okay, such in a graduation in liberal arts and wide array of subjects to pick them up. And these things will necessarily make education policy, very interesting actually. And simultaneously, we also have vocational education, a strong presence of project-based learning. And I have, so many aspirations about it. Actually, certainly we will succeed.
Okay, definitely. With your words, I see more futuristic aspects. Teachers becoming more and more tech driven, like you. Even though you mentioned chalk is part of your life, but still you are a tech driven academician. So how are you connected with your followers and learners since the pandemic hit and it's a lockdown?
But somehow, many teachers and many students have learned, of course, in such a situation, what wasn't supposed, of course, earlier. And, this inexorable imperative, whatever we have of this pandemic, certainly has created an environment where teachers have to learn.
Right.
So, see, all the teachers who have been teaching, of course, say for the past 20 years, 30 years, totally away from technology. Those who are not even comfortable, even they never touched the keyboard also. I don't really think that they have touched any time before, but they have learned. I should appreciate the teachers. In no time, okay, in no time, see, in say maybe 2 months time, 1 month time at their disposal, they learned so much, making videos,
right,
making a montage and creating PowerPoint presentations and editing those videos, whatever they have made, and administering tests and conducting even festivities there, everything they have done. Everything they have learned. And I tell you, if this continues, we have understood for the first time, but the teachers can learn, but for that, there are two conditions necessary, of course. One, the situation should demand. Yes. And the second thing, of the school should have a provision to train them. And now they have realized, actually. Now they have realized. Even I tell you, the notes is going home by WhatsApp messages, right. And they're getting back. They're getting back. Children are writing the tests, actually. The WhatsApp images are coming and the corrections are taking place and marking is being done. And everything they have learned, right. And in no time, and they're very comfortable. But I tell you one thing, if the teachers continue to learn, and I always advocate this point, actually, teachers can develop a strong second source of income.
Right.
A very strong second source of income. Maybe it's online teaching or preparing notes. Even I just tell them they can sell anything they have made, any resource.
Right.
Any resource, right from lesson plan to the question bank, mind map, anything they can start selling. If they know the beauty of this one, it's not necessary for you to go to a school and the problem of these logistics and all that. They can still teach from the comfort of their home, and the globe is the platform for them now. And any teacher, of course, who's a bit resourceful, having learned something, of course, at this situation, of course, of this COVID-19, a necessity, of course, that has been thrown on us. Right. But I tell you, teachers have realized their hidden potentials.
Right, sir.
They're gearing up now. And they have already, I am talking about teachers who are average or above average teachers. I am not talking about those who have gone to wind because of this situation. Many teachers, he said, they have given up. They said, it's not for us. It's not our cup of tea. We can't learn all the things. And barring that group, there is an Ivy League group of teachers, of course. And now they have become very comfortable with the systems, and there is adaptability to the new environment, and they're quite flexible, and ultimately, of course, they're very, very successful. Right. And I wish them all the very best.
So are you still connected with your followers and learning communities?
I am connected. I am very much connected. I am conducting webinars, and fortunately, there is a distinct advantage. Let me honestly tell you. Earlier, my workshops, I used to travel a lot. Okay,
Yeah, I know the commuting
15,
time.
15 to 20, 15 to
Right.
20 days a month. I used to travel either by flying or trains, or half our lives were on the like move.
Travel mode.
But now I tell you, we are conducting webinars. We are not getting tired,
Right.
and and many times what is happening? Our webinars are is only of 1 hour duration, 2 hours duration.
Yes.
And the second advantage I've got is that I'm teaching students. Okay, I never feel that it's below my dignity or whatever it is.
Okay.
I'm teaching my students, and far and wide, and therefore the gamut of this one, of course, is much different now, and completely see, it has given me new opportunities. Only
Exactly.
people who can search for opportunities in such a pandemic situation, of course, certainly teachers got benefited by this. Is a blessing in disguise. No way could they feel that okay, something has happened and how to recover from this. Nothing of that kind, actually. And see, I am teaching now, I am conducting my workshops, and I am guiding teachers. I am helping people to write books, and all these things are happening without any hindrance. Absolutely no reason for me to have any kind of regrets. Okay, and very comfortable.
So overall, our teachers have evolved from the ecosystem of teaching to a different heights. They are now breaking the new normal. They're into the new normal environment. They're comfortably adjusting to whatever it takes to be a technology or virtual teaching. That's the beauty of teaching. Teachers have to be immediately, get into the character, different, playing the characters. Thanks to pandemic, even I should say, of course, in a good way. But there are few statements and misconceptions associated with teachers or educators. I would like to read out for you. So I want you to let me know if they are true or false, and a bit elaboratively.
Sure,
So
sure.
all that misconceptions have to be broken from a person like you, right? So let's talk about homework. More homework will lead to better learning. What do you say?
Absolutely. I say strong no for this, actually. If you look at the Finland education system,
Right.
the maximum time they spend with the homework is only 10 minutes.
Okay.
And in high school classes, in very rare case, it's 20 minutes. The first and foremost one, homework is not there at all. Not there at all. Even if you want to give it, it's only a bit of reinforcement, not for fresh learning. Remember this, actually. Homework is, it doesn't need a parent's intervention and all that. Not necessarily. It's only a bit of reinforcement. You have learned once, it's only for practice sake. And that too, it is only for 10 minutes. They see Finland education system, which is supposed to be, of course, an ideal environment and all the ecosystems in place there.
Right.
See, they say whatever work has to be done, that too they spend very little time in the school, of course. I have to tell you about this point also. Only 20 hours per week. They spend in the school only 20 hours per week, particularly for learning sake. It's only 20 hours. And homework also is, it's just very little time. Children, they enjoy doing that. It's just a reinforcement, and it's not much for this one. And so my strong no for it. No, more homework, more efficacy and all that is completely no. I don't agree.
In fact, no, right from the mouth of Dr.
No,
Here comes
absolutely.
another one. Here comes another one. Change in student-teacher ratio will increase the school educational quality. What do you say, sir?
See, it's a good idea, but at the same time, if you have too few, students, in the cohort, in the school, is only your class has got only 15 students, 20 students, there may not be a real competition. So I strongly think of an average number, okay, see, 30 is okay, manageable.
Right.
And see, though I say that, okay, 1:15 and 1:20 and all that, I just say 1:30 for an Indian context, because we can't have the luxury of having 1:15 and still maintain the competition. It's not possible, and therefore 1:30 will work, no problem.
Right.
No
Because
problem.
I've seen whenever I would go for volunteering or, as a tutor in government schools, the class is filled with 60 beaming heads. They, I mean, 60,
Mm.
80, I wonder how government teachers handle kids, right? So here comes another one is exclusively on curriculum, because most of the parents, they have the predefined thoughts on curriculum. They believe curriculum is all that matters for them. So what would you say, sir? If it still
This
offers.
this is again this is again no, actually, because see, how is the curriculum delivered? That's more important, actually.
Right.
Now, these days, there isn't much difference between the curricula. Okay, broadly, we have the same kind of determinants there and the same kind of academic standards, the same kind of competencies to check them. We have the same kind of learning indicators. So
Right.
more or less, the curriculum, the scope of that at least remains the same. Okay, whether you think of ICSE board or CBSE board or state board or whatever it is, but what makes a difference is the delivery of that.
Right.
The
Correct.
delivery. And therefore, see, wherever you have a resourceful teacher, you see, for example, you have CBSE books.
Right.
CBSE books, they deal with the historical perspectives, very nicely written, they're very well structured, controlled and everything. But it's only a course outline. CBSE textbooks, it just forms only a course outline. So this is broadly the syllabus. It is the teacher's interest. It is the teacher's interest to, infuse that, all the additional elements, of course, into that, and so that it can be more interesting, actually.
Right.
And therefore, I give more importance to the curriculum delivery rather than the curriculum.
Right. This question is actually in my mind also, because from my childhood, I've been fed up listening people saying, if you want to get into engineering, you should definitely go with state board. And if you want to get into higher medicine, you should opt for CBSE, because CBSE maths is not upgraded. All this misconceptions are so, but from I just found out that it's all about delivery. Right. So then here comes another one. I already saw your video related to profoundly gifted children. And I couldn't resist myself asking this question, because a small incident I've noticed. My nephew, he is a first grader and he can read fifth grade textbook very conveniently. And his mother credits that he is, by genes, they are very much, intelligent, so they can easily catch up. But what I found is his writing is not so good. He does have challenge with that. He's been labeled as a smart, talented kid. So when I watched your video on profoundly gifted children, or smart, intelligent, but they do have certain challenges. So my question here is, for smart, highly talented students, do they feel unchallenged, bored and frustrated, and develop any bad study habits?
See, usually the way we construe this itself, there's something wrong in that.
Right.
Let me tell you categorically something. For every mother, her child is intelligent.
Right.
For every father, he is a genius.
Right.
So you should first come out of that. Okay, you should have an objective assessment. Is he an intelligent? Yes, every child is. So how does it manifest? That is very important, actually.
Okay.
So when it comes to the manifestation, many parents, they think that memory is intelligence. That is the wrong assumption, actually.
Right.
So let me tell you honestly one thing. One mother comes and tells me, my boy can remember the capital cities of 100 countries.
Yes, yes.
Okay, he can do this. See, these are all, recite a poem, narrate a story, and all these discourses I hear. But however, I tell you, these are not signs of intelligence. This is only memory.
Okay.
And intelligence, when we tell, when it comes to the analytical aspect of that, application aspect of that, making a judgment aspect of that, evaluation, and finally creating a new product which was non-existent. When these higher order thinking skills are not there, just memory and understanding will not take them long.
Right.
Okay, fine. So now what is the child's capacity? If you have a rhyme in a poem, a child can remember a 300 line poem in one day, a 10-year-old child. That is his capacity. So you are underestimating his capacity. No, though your child is doing certain things, that is not his capacity. It's much more than that.
Right. Right.
And therefore, see, when it comes to the gifted children, it is good, of course, the parents have to approach a psychologist who can administer a psychometric test and tell them, yes, of course, this is his IQ rating. And this is how it, it's manifested it out. So without doing all the things, if you just come to a conclusion and say that my child is intelligent, it is just pointless. He is intelligent, but you haven't identified that in a right way. But usually what happens when this is not nurtured, the intelligence, whatever the child has got, is not nurtured, given an opportunity and ambience to improve and all that, and automatically, of course, it comes down. And by the age of 10, of course, he becomes very, very normal. Again, the same rote learning and basic understanding and somehow getting the marks. And see, I have seen most of the parents, initially, they're very much interested. They think that their children are intelligent. Of course, they're intelligent. There's no question about it. But ultimately, they think that, again, they come back to marks.
Right.
Probably, they want their child to go 1 year in advance or 2 years in advance and say that, okay, my boy has. I'll tell you one thing, if you put a child 1 year in advance in the school, he will be competing with 1 year all through his career. Let me repeat this point actually. If the child is 1 year younger to his class, 1 year younger to his class, because of parents' too much of anxiety.
Yes.
And image building exercise showing that my child has completed his 10th class when he was 12 or 11 or whatever it is.
Right.
They're putting the child in such a situation. He has to feel the stress throughout his career. He is competing with someone who is much older than him.
Correct.
What do you get? What do you get if he is a graduate at the age of 70? I don't understand. Do you think that you can get 3 more years salary, or what if he gets some employment? Isn't it ridiculous actually? Like if he completes, let us say, with missing links, getting marks and getting a graduate degree is not the question actually. Like,
correct.
Okay, he has attended the convocation, he has received his master's program. You see, he's only 17 or 18, whatever it is. But I think that it puts only undue pressure on him, and he's not very comfortable there. Right. And whatever he has to learn in an age-appropriate context is not learned, and he's only preparing for the exams. And this is only to build the image of the parents, and it's only to draw the attention, put the child in the limelight. Right. And it's all not necessary actually. And there is nothing wrong even if the child is 1 year lagging behind to his class. Okay. There is nothing wrong in that. If the child has to be, say, in grade 1 by the age of 5, let him be 6. There is no problem. Like in most of the UK schools, children carry only cricket bat. They don't carry even the school bag. Even at the age of 11, 12, they want to play. School is a place where they meet their friends to play. And see, we have our foundation classes from 3rd class, and we give them synopsis. We don't make them read textbooks. And we conduct tests, weekly tests, Monday test, Saturday test. And that test also is horrible. It is an objective type. And for a grade 3 child, you want to give him an OMR sheet. And grading is done by scanning.
Right.
And if he is talking about only multiple choice items, multiple choice options, and the no subjective answers are tried, just because you know that today IIT exam, JEE mains is a objective type test, and right from grade 3, you have deprived him of writing an answer there. Right. How preposterous that is actually.
So true, sir. Literally, it's stunting the child's IQ in our own foolish way.
Mm-hmm.
Now that was about IIT JEE right at the very tender age, and that's really preposterous, as you mentioned. there's a huge upsurge of virtual universities these days. If you can see internet, everywhere one or the other university is offering internet, all the online classes, online courses at the best way they can. And there are learningware providers. So how can a traditional institute can compete, or do you think that the students will be missing their campus activities, which is important for a graduate?
This was predicted long ago, and it's maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
Christensen has written a book, The Innovative University.
Okay.
Christensen.
Mhm.
And Henry Eyring is the co-author.
Right.
What they said is that another 5 years' time, 50% of the American universities will go bankrupt.
Okay.
This was predicted long ago. So why American universities become bankrupt is people who come to like enjoy the campus life and learning there and all that will vanish soon.
Right.
Because see, online education has become so popular these days because of the internet access.
Right.
Data transfer has become so very, very fast, number one. And second thing is, people are talking about the information we are getting at the right source by cloud computing they're talking about. And people are talking about the artificial intelligence and machine learning, deep learning, and virtual reality they're talking about. Therefore, the people who are very comfortable with the technology have come into the field.
Right.
And they're replacing large number of teachers, even as university teachers also. And therefore, for every 10 teachers we have today, there will be only one technical person, of course, who's sounded domain knowledge will remain. Right. So therefore, what ultimately remains in the universities, in the higher education institutions, and even at school level also, see, I tell you one thing, see, you are preparing for a competitive examination.
Mm-hmm.
And see, when you're preparing for, say, it can be a bank exam or a civil services, whatever it is, there is a faculty member at Delhi, and online simultaneously he's running classes in 20 different cities. When his class is being heard, interactive class, not a video. Right. It's an interactive class. So his class is being run in 20 different cities, and the faculty member is at Delhi. And therefore, the role of a teacher is going to find a big paradigm shift completely. Right. Is going to change completely. And therefore, the expertise is spread over now. Right. It is not accumulated at one place. Right. See, you can't say that for this particular subject, I must go to Cambridge or Harvard and it's only available there and all that. So right. whatever expertise is available in the world, it is consolidated, and right. that faculty member is accessible from any part of the globe. And therefore, what is the point in going and spending time overseas and learning and paying a huge amount and all that? And therefore, the point here is, I want to tell you, there are two things that are happening because of this online learning. It is accessible and it is affordable.
True.
So when it is accessible and affordable, and I tell you, like all the university campuses, of course, they have to do something else. Okay, not learning. Of course, they have to convert them into revamp into some other work and all that. Like maybe they have to start some industries, whatever it is. And even in Indian context, it takes a little more time. I tell you the reason why. Right. Why does this Indian context takes a little more time? Still India strongly feels that the physical presence of a teacher cannot be discounted. Still it is required. Right. And therefore with this notion, we may run for few more years. But I tell you, even after the pandemic, most of the people who have gone outside for their higher education will think twice. Will think twice, because equally good and more affordable education is accessible from the comfort of your house. And when you can write an online examination and get your certification and all that, when the skills honed are same, whether you are present in the university or doing from a long distance, and there is absolutely no reason, there is no fun in going all the way there.
Right. So, but still they'll be missing college campus. What say? You enjoyed yours. Why shouldn't that next future generation enjoy campus?
No. Perhaps we can start an evening friends club actually, like those who miss actually, and there you will have anything other than learning. Okay.
Wow. That calls for me for another question. What are your hobbies and interests?
My teaching is my hobby, and day in and out I think of at some level or the other, not necessarily at school level. I teach college students. I guide teachers, and um, that's the only thing. I can't think of anything else actually.
How about books? How about books, sir? Are you been writing something?
I have, it's only a compilation. I have written one book, My Good Teaching in Action.
Okay.
It deals with all the aspects of, what a teacher ought to be.
Okay.
There are several things. You see, it is only completely the history of education.
Oh.
Right from how it used to be and how it has changed actually, and all the theories involved, all the schools of thought involved, all the philosophies involved.
Right.
And more so, it is all about the theory of knowledge actually, the epistemology. Okay, how people learn actually, like how it should be delivered, and that is number one. And my second passion is technology, and particularly like making the concepts rather clear to them. And therefore, for that conceptual clarity, of course, I produced one book. Let's play the game. Let's play the game of physics. And let's play the game of physics. Physics is normally, considered as a dry subject, and many people think that it is tough and all that. And many people they think, because it's required. It's required both for engineering stream and the medical stream and all that. I just tell them only one thing, like, see, the technology used for imparting education has changed a lot.
Right.
We all started with say maybe PPTs. Initially, we were drawing diagrams and we color diagrams, maybe charts and all that. Then we embedded them in the PowerPoints actually, like
yes.
PowerPoint slides.
Yeah.
Then we got flash animations, maybe a bit of animation.
Right.
And then we got Vermal worlds, and then we have got Java applets, then we have got simulations, then we got gizmos. See, the world is running much faster. We still are thinking that, okay, I can draw a diagram on the board taking 30 minutes time, and last 15 minutes I can somehow label it and get off from the class. Those days have gone. People, you can't see, people are now saying that, why do you want to? So though it is good for developing, at that primitive stage, it was okay. But now, why do you take so much of time to draw a figure and making the child draw it and all that? But understand the functioning of that, each part there and all that you spend more time for that. So discuss and give them more information. And therefore, the present day textbooks have got more information. And therefore, you can't use the same primitive methods, rustic, okay, redolent of James Bond movies and all that. Like, you can't come out with that, and you should change completely.
Right.
And see, I just give you one example. Say, for example, I teach collisions in, say, for intermediate students physics. When bodies collide, it can be head-on collision or an oblique collision, whatever it is. I see in the classroom, bodies collide and they can hear the sound. So that is the clarity you can think of giving to the students, and you can do a number of experiments in a virtual environment. You have virtual labs. Suppose in a chemical lab, you need so many consumables, your glass apparatus and all that. But what can be done is that you can combine the reagents, you can perform a chemical reaction there, and in a virtual environment. It's very safe. And you can take any kind of reagents you have in the laboratory, and you can start working with the chemicals. So that's a luxury we have today. Why do you see, even when you are taking, say, a triangle and a simple centroid, you are taking of the point of concurrence, you can hold a vertex, you can change the shape of the triangle, and in several ways, and literally you are studying this.
Right.
You're studying this. See, on the board you can draw only one case. But I have so many cases to study, and ultimately the child can draw his own conclusion from it.
Right. The 3D animation, 4D images, and all that.
He strongly advocates. The use of everything. The 3D animation. You can today build a molecule and spin that 3-dimensional molecule. You can show them and talk about the isomerism and everything. Of course, I tell you, it is not a fancy idea. It is a reality. And when it is a reality, don't keep your students away from technology, and teachers must be comfortable. And at the same time, of course, they should make, if students are, they start using that, I tell you, the teachers have to run behind them.
Right.
The teachers have to.
Wonderful said. So many insights. That's why people popularly call you as the walking encyclopedia of personality development, psychology, and communication. And you're a, amalgamation of many things that today I can, and all listeners who are watching us, our viewers, who might not know you, will be knowing you absolutely in a, in a 3D dimension. Every aspect you're covering, from education, science, and life. Beautiful, sir. Now, here comes a very interesting segment, rapid question round. So, are you ready for it?
A
You're
bit scared.
absolutely ready.
A bit scared actually. Anyway, go ahead. Of course.
Right. So, yeah, I'm curious to know what's your typical day. How Dr. Ramakrishna sir leads.
I spend a lot of time with the internet, and I learn a lot from that. And
Right.
it's my preparation, and there is no depth for the content available on the net. And therefore, whenever I get time, of course, barring my webinars, my teaching schedules, and all that, and I keep a lot of time for my internet. Of course, I watch so many people teaching,
Right.
and I follow the content, and I have a few admirers, and whom I have to emulate and all that. And and they definitely, like, I spend a lot of time on the net.
All right.
On the net.
Beautiful. So, how about if you aren't any of this into teaching? What other career would have you opted for?
It's difficult to think of that, but still, I don't know. I know a bit of astrology also.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I study the hands, I study the face, and all that. I can give them some predictions, of course, when
Okay.
when they're going to get that corona test positive or not.
So,
I have an inherent interest of this bit of horoscopes and all that. I study, and these positions of the planetary positions and all that. I can understand a bit. It is in the family blood,
okay.
actually.
And as inquisitive as, like, were you as a child also? Were you like this? Like
Means
into maths, into English, into astronomical science?
Yeah, it happened for one good reason. I tell you honestly one thing. My grandfather was an English teacher.
Okay.
I learned from him. My father is a mathematics teacher, of course,
Okay.
school headmaster, and our neighbor was a Telugu teacher, of course, our school
My
Telugu
God.
teacher. And like I was pressed between all these teachers, and there was no room for me, of course, to go out and all that.
Right.
And somehow I didn't get any kind of boredom spending time with them, and therefore learning was probably in the environment. I strongly feel.
Right.
So
The environment made you what we can see you today. Your environment. So,
maybe.
who, apart from that environment, apart from your neighbor, your grandfather, your father, what or who inspires you every day? What is your inspiration when you wake up? Okay, this day, this is going to happen. What's your inspiration?
Let me tell you honestly, I have about 4,000 Facebook friends. Okay. And some of them are so good. When I read their posts, there's a lot to understand.
Right.
Okay. And that quenches my thirst to learn more. Okay. Honestly speaking, some of my friends, of course, the way they write their posts and all that, this is really like phenomenal. And I learn from it. I tell you, like, you see, many people think that Facebook is only a waste of time. But I consider that as you are with 4,000 people,
Right.
of many people matured and all that, barring a few just for friendship, like for time pass and entertainment, you need some people, of course. Sometimes the people, of course, who can challenge you also with,
Okay.
but however, a large chunk of my friends group, of course, is certainly a source of inspiration for me.
Okay.
And it's a great learning for me, and I really owe a lot to them, because you see, unless you have sources whereby you learn a lot, there's nothing like it comes out from you. So
Content oriented.
you need input. You need yeah.
So, what's the fun being a teacher? Do you feel that it's a very interesting career?
I advise, but I want people to like it when they just embark on this.
Right.
So it's not easy these days.
Right.
You got children who are very challenging, and you have to update your domain knowledge day in and day out, and you have to try different methods of teaching, the delivery mechanism, because some methods may not work with all the people and all that. And at the end of the day, of course, you should be ready for teaching. You should like it without any kind of disinterest and all that. It also depends on the economical status of the teacher, where you are working. Okay, with all that interest, of course, if you come and work in a private school where you are, very meager payments you are receiving, you may not sustain that interest. And therefore, if a proper environment is provided to the teacher, and certainly, of course, it's very enjoyable, and students remember you for a long time. You are making an indelible impression on their minds, and that your image is getting registered. And I see students, of course, wherever I go, I meet them sometimes, and somewhere they come and say, "Sir, good evening, sir. Good afternoon, sir." Wherever you go, you receive them. Actually, it's a privilege. It's a prerogative of the teacher, and certainly, of course, a teacher can enjoy this.
Right, sir. You're talking about teacher enjoying when they are free of mind, they can work, they should be passion driven. I've known many teachers who give so much of efforts. Do you think awards and rewards are mandatory for teachers?
I say yes, but these things, like these days, you can buy any of them.
Right.
They say you in no time, if you have a little money, of course, people are, I should not tell you, doesn't look nice, but I request all the people, you leave this field.
Right, sir.
Okay, you leave this field. Let there be a bit of honesty in the people. Let them be recognized, and let the recognition comes from the students.
Right.
You don't need from the, government. Government need not invite you to Delhi and give you a best teacher award, a national best teacher award.
Right.
And you know what you are.
Right.
You know what you are.
True.
You know how much of effort and money you have spent to get it. Actually, please leave this field. Okay, this is not for, you see, there is a beautiful saying, actually. We are not here for income. We are here for outcome.
Right, sir.
See, the outcome is, a student whom you have developed, actually. You have groomed. You have inspired. You have challenged.
Right, sir.
You have ultimately molded him. And, I tell you one thing. They may be today professors in a university or leading doctors or whatever it is. They don't forget a primary teacher. Don't think that your knowledge is not sufficient so that you can get the recognition of your student. No, they remember. They remember their primary teachers.
Right,
very well, very well.
Primary teachers are the most cherished moments for us with primary education and our primary teachers. Yeah. So how about a book? What would you recommend any first-time readers, since you have written a book, and what would you suggest? Any book?
I generally what I do is that there are many people who are, they want to improve their language. They have a specific purpose for reading a book.
Right.
Okay. When they want to read a book, and definitely it is advantageous for them, they can improve their vocabulary substantially. Number one. Second thing is they get the sentence structure.
Right.
So, and many of the sentences, of course, straight away you can use them as it is in any other context.
Conversation.
You can replicate that. But usually what happens when you start reading, just because you have to read, because someone has suggested that you have to read,
Right.
you read it for half an hour and you keep the book down, because you don't get the interest, of course, to finish out.
Right.
But what happens here is people choose wrong books, and therefore they can't sustain the interest for reading.
Right.
And therefore, I give this option to the reader. Say, for example, you like, say, biographies, and you read biographies.
Right.
It is, you see, that's the kind of stuff you like. And don't go to, say, an adventure story and all that, like you, because you may not like it. Right. And therefore, see, every discerning learner, it's imperative now. What they should do is know your taste.
Right. Absolutely, sir. I agree with this. Right. Right, sir.
And choose your book. No matter, no, but you need not give an account of what you are reading and all that. It is your personal and it's your prerogative, of course. It's your privilege. And therefore, think of the books whom you like. I mean, the books, the kind of books you like. And pick up the books selectively and you can read for a longer period. And once you start reading, you develop interest. And that not only improves your language, you get a hold on the subject you like.
Right, sir.
You need not waste time separately for your subject. You say, for example, you're an English teacher. Read some narratives and discourses carefully choosing. And that is, like you are becoming a scholar in English. And inadvertently, you very, like consciously you are not reading, but say for a pleasure you are reading. But however, you are also improving your professional career there.
Yes,
and therefore, you have a dual advantage there. And that should be done by anybody, of course. Reading skills are very, very important, of course. Even Shashi Tharoor gives only one word, which is interesting. He said, read.
Right. So it's that we have to choose. Book has to be chosen by according to our taste, not by someone's suggestions. Right. Wonderful thought on that, sir. In fact, that is a takeaway for me. When someone comes to me and asks, ma'am, suggest something, since they think that English teachers are readily available suggesting people, they're always in rush. How can I improve fluency? Tell me what are the tips. So that's not how things work. It has to be like your mind and soul has to be into that book. So wonderful. We had known so much and you did awesome with your rapid question round. No worries with that. Now here comes another rhetorical question. With your vast experience, you might have seen a whole lot of world, whole lot of things through your books, through your observations, through your scientific approach. But this is a situation for you. If you're stranded in any island and you have no one to rescue you, if your mind can actually assess something that, so how would you see the situation?
No. I see. I love to get stranded on an island. Give me a laptop and internet access. I don't mind. Like being on an island. Of course, if I'm left alone, and that's an environment, of course, which I seek all the time.
Right.
Yeah, you. These days we have them everywhere, and nobody is alone.
Right.
And nobody is in a group also. In a large group, you are maybe alone.
Yes.
Even when you are alone, you are with the world. See, this is all the perspective that you have to develop.
Beautiful. So even though you're given a chance, you would love to go with your laptop and leave you alone and the whole island with your own way of taking things. Beautiful, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for so patiently giving your time and insights. I really enjoyed the talk. And back to you, how did you enjoy the pep talk?
Very much, actually. Very much. Nice talking to you, Sudha. And you are a learner person. You meet so many people. You are a trainer, and all the time you focus on the language and all that. And certainly, of course, it's a very joyful experience.
So,
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Any suggestions or comments on pep talk?
Keep going.
that word is enough for me. So, that gives me a okay, go for it. Right. Thank you very much. Any sign off? Like our viewers are watching us and they will be probably feeling alone. Even though they are in the crowd, they're still alone. Can you just give a sign off message to them, if the people who are watching you?
Thank you very much, everybody. I don't know how much of this you are taking it away, but I really have enjoyed taking the questions of Sudhamai, and all the very best in all your endeavors, and use the pandemic time carefully and stay home, stay safe, and keep learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining Pep Talk. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Well,
so much.
Back to you all again. That was Dr. Adhuri Ramakrishna, sir, who has given an extensive, insights about education and learning and blended learning and upgradation and technology-driven teaching. Well, if you're one such who's still thinking, Shall I be more upgraded, or shall I teach? Shall I continue with my traditional teaching? Well, you better have to start thinking on this, because you should never be left out, right? With this thought, I'll be leaving you all with a happy note and a smile on my face and a bye-bye on my way. Thank you everyone for watching Pep Talk. Bye-bye.